Shabbat Shalom. It is a beautiful day just because we are living it. And there is so much to think about on this particular Shabbat. But I'm thinking today of a little girl who's about to be 16 years old in a few weeks, who, when she was diverted with her father and mother on a very delayed flight back from San Francisco to New York a number of years ago, at least 10 years ago, maybe more, she was diverted through Philadelphia for a day. And needing to wait for a day until the flight could be rescheduled to get them back to to New York, they visited for a little bit of time, as people do. In Philadelphia, they went to the Liberty Bell. Now, my very tired niece wasn't very impressed, and she rather famously described her seeing of the Liberty Bell as, "It was just a big bell with a crack in it," which of course cracked all of us up, and rather from the mouths of babes, we had a rather honest assessment, at least, of a 5 or 6-year-old's experience with the Liberty Bell. Now, the Liberty Bell, of course, has a verse from it that should sound a little bit familiar. It wasn't exactly in today's reading, but it comes a few verses before we began today. And it's a very close paraphrase, depending, as we know from Torah study, how we translate these things. But the Liberty Bell has on it the verse from Leviticus chapter 25, verse 10. "You shall proclaim release throughout the land." It's not easy to translate the word release. It became translated, and in many places it is, as liberty throughout the land. Now, well do we know, without needing to go into too much detail, that for a very, very long time in this country, certainly not all people were free. But we also know from studying our Torah that a lot of the teachings and ideas laid down by people of very good intentions are aspirational. But it probably wasn't, if you look for patterns of these things, a complete accident, certainly when one likes to see poetry in the world, that the Liberty Bell, almost from the very beginning, had a crack in it. Seems to have been something with its construction that, using modern technology, back in the 70s, kind of an X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, I'm sure I've said it wrong, forgive me, discovering that the composition of the Liberty Bell was doomed from the outset because of a high tin content that resulted in a brittle composition that was prone to cracking. And that's exactly what happened. How the Liberty Bell actually got its crack, or when, is the subject of as much discussion as there is Torah verses in our classical commentary. And there have been attempts over the centuries, even from the very beginning, to fix it. The crack was, of course, considered unsightly. It was just a bell originally, actually, but of course, certainly because of the crack, it has achieved a kind of mythic status, and it was taken around the country to inspire people to join in various war efforts and promoting the notion originally of liberty bonds and such. So it's become, as you all know, on this Memorial Day weekend, a very important and crucial American symbol. But of course, it's partly that way because of its crack. And I think that's something that I need to think about a lot this Shabbat and in this particular chapter that I'm in and that we're all in. There's so much that's cracked, and a lot of people have wanted so much to cover over that crack. Even from the very beginning, a couple of silversmiths melted down the original bell. It's actually the one that we see there's a recreation. And it cracked too. So those of a kind of religious bent clearly have been looking to this bell for a deeper explanation than just that it was made with a lot of tin and prone to cracking. this is an imperfect union here. And whether we're talking about ourselves, the country, the world, or the universe, there's a lot that's cracked right now. How the Liberty Bell actually got its crack, well, there's lots available to read about and lots of speculation. But I think rather than the specifics of any of that, I just think I want to stay with the notion of what's broken and what might yet be a little bit fixed, or how we can reconcile ourselves to the cracks in our lives and in the world. This is really a cracked time. Another verse in our Torah portion that means a lot to me, even though for some it's painful. I don't know, I find great inspiration in it, is actually right before the reading began today, closer to the start of the reading. And that's Leviticus 25, verse 23. God said to Moses, "The land is mine. You are but strangers resident with me." The land is mine, says God. And of course, we're all so concerned, more than that, with the cracks in the Jewish world and in the world at large that seems to have found yet again a place upon which to take out its frustrations, and that seems yet again to be far too widespread, aimed at us, the Jewish people. And that's terrifying. But I'm also concerned about, more than I can say, the fractures between Jewish communities and Jewish individuals. And a few months ago, more toward the beginning of this heinous time, an old friend of mine who was more conservative than I am, a classmate whom I enjoyed very much, we're pretty good friends. I called him a few years ago to help me kind of work through some of the political extremism of this time. I wanted to understand from him, a person I trust, why he was leaning certain ways. And he was helpful. Just because conversation and trying to understand where people are coming from can be difficult, but is essential. But he had put on Facebook a few months ago, really in big letters, that the land is ours, meaning the Jewish people's. And I get involved with, meaning of course the state of Israel, and however much land can be carved out to be a Jewish state. The land is ours, he said. And I quoted him this verse from this parsha. God says the land is mine. We're but strangers resident within it. And he didn't respond well. He thought I was saying that we should give the land to whoever else wants it. I wasn't saying that. And I wrote back, I said, that's not remotely what I had said, but it was an interesting insight into the instinctive responses that people have and the emotion with which they're responding these days, and how potentially destructive it is even between friends. This we know. But I took a gander. I post very little on Facebook for so many reasons, but I felt safe enough there to say we have to read the Torah where we know it is correct. And in the middle of Bahar, God says the land is mine. We are but strangers resident with it. And I think if we don't remember that, we can get really rigid and start to crack in ways that cannot be repaired, perhaps. I know it's tempting to only see the cracks, and I made peace with my friend and I explained further what I meant, and he actually backed down. Said, yeah, you're right, I need to think about that more. Great, I'll take that. The land is none of ours. It belongs to the Creator. And the implacable positions that we are forced to take has led us to this frightening time. I resonate with Jeremiah's terror. This is cracked. It's falling apart, he says. But there is a voice that says, do not give up. Continue to try to heal. To embody the words of my beloved Leonard Cohen. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Amazing how often that is quoted and how much that has become a sacred word to so many people. And there are many essays, books, lectures, even dissertations written on Leonard's relationship with mysticism and Kabbalah in particular, and the notion of the universe being cracked and light shining through and light encased in husks and shells, and we have to release the light. And was Leonard really talking about the light of creation and of the divine presence and everything? It's possible he was talking about the Liberty Bell. And though there's a crack in it, that's what's going to remind us that everything is a little broken, or a lot broken, and that we have a chance to shine some light where it needs to be shined. Not only see the cracks, but see them as openings for a way forward. So Leonard, who loved this country actually, and felt it was a young country still making many mistakes, but he had hope. Sometimes hard to find in some of his songs, but certainly that one called Anthem, that is quoted on mugs and magnets and t-shirts and all sorts of other places. There is a crack in everything, but we have to ring the bells that still can ring. So I want to thank you all for helping me to ring the bells that can ring. And on this Memorial Day weekend, when we're remembering all of those who died in service of this country, so that we can continue to proclaim liberty throughout the land. As always, when we remember those who have gone before, who were valiant and brave and true, we need, as always, to live the way they would have wanted us to live. So whether the actual Liberty Bell or just the bells of the songs in our hearts, let's keep letting the light in and working for freedom throughout this great land. Shabbat shalom.